Hey everyone, and welcome to the Redmond Middle School Math Club overview video. This video is provided to answer all the questions ahead of time that we can about what the Math Club is, how it operates, and how you can participate. If you have any other questions for follow-up, we recommend you check out our website, which we'll provide a link to later on, or you can email mathclubchair@rmsptsa.org, and we'll have that email again later on. So in this video, we're going to pretty quickly go through the goals of the math club, how our coaching sessions work, how we're involved in competitions, how you can get involved as a volunteer, and what the next steps are. This video is intended to be watched early on in the year, in the August to September timeframe, so you can get a good feel for what the math club is. And we will have either an online parent night video or a Teams meeting for parent night or an in-person meeting for parent night, depending on the circumstances of the school year. So math club goals are really important to understand because there's a lot of different things a math club can cover. And so we have a prioritized list of 3 goals that we have. The number one goal is to help students develop their problem solving skills and their confidence in approaching problems. We do this through math, but it's not exclusively about math. There's a lot of logic, there's a lot of conceptual thinking, and there's a lot of focus on how to take sophisticated problems and break them down into easier problems that are more approachable for students at a middle school grade level to be able to tackle. In addition to the problem solving skills at a generic level, we do also focus on supplementing the math curriculum taught in the school with breadth and depth coaching. Whereas during the school year, each grade tends to focus on a specific topic like algebra or geometry. Over the course of Math Club, we focus on everything we can cover in the middle school curriculum. So over the course of the year, we have a plan designed to cover a lot of in-depth topics and then a lot of breadth topics that are focused on combining those into larger questions and things that are related to more sophisticated applications of the math they're learning in school. And the final thing we do is we coordinate school participation in math competitions like the AMC and math counts and so on. Competitions are a really great way for the math club to focus on developing students because they provide a very easy conceptual framework for people to understand how to approach or how to be motivated towards working into math. So whereas if we sat down and we made everything tutoring sessions, it's not as received well by the students as, let's say, a competition where we're able to say, here's 10 questions and you have an opportunity to really prove your mettle. And so we do frame everything in the context of math competitions. However, it's not required that anyone participate in the competitions. So if you're someone who's passionate about math or wants to improve in math skills, the math club is absolutely for you, even if you don't want to compete. And we'll go into detail as to our philosophy about the development of skills in a little bit. Now, one of the biggest things that the math club provides are our coaching sessions. These are weekly sessions that are held. They're about an hour long, and they focus on a couple different approaches to math depending on the level. And so they're led by our high school students in the area, mostly from Redmond High School, and we have some from Tesla STEM. And these are the perfect coaches that we could get for our students because they are former middle school math competition veterans, and they've been through the process of succeeding in competitions. They know what it takes to learn new topics. They have an exposure to the broadest array of math problems and the approaches to solving them, and they can relate to the middle school students better than anybody else. So we're really fortunate to have, every year we've had just great coaching teams. Now, I mentioned that we have different sessions held every week. So what we have is we have 3 different levels of experience that right now we'll just call homework, club, and varsity. And we'll get into the detail of how that applies to our approach to coaching math. But the point is that every week we'll have a homework session, we'll have a club session, we'll have a varsity session. And depending on the circumstances of the year, the availability of those sessions to different students will vary. But we'll get into that. Check out the parent night meeting or video for this year in order to understand what the approach is going to be based on the circumstances we're operating under. So let's talk about math concepts and how our math club approaches building student skills and confidence. So at the bottom level of a pyramid, we think about all the particular domains within math that you have to be able to master in order to be able to advance to higher level math. Things like working with ratios, or things like working with measurement or geometric proportions, and there's just a virtually unlimited number of topics there. But these are all specific topics that require a lot of practice in perfecting the things that you need to either memorize in the case of formulas, or techniques in the case of counting and algorithms for working with that, or just the concepts in the case of things like ratios, or working with a lot of geometric transformations and things like that. So think of that as the foundation of math that students really need to master to be able to work on to the next level of problems, which are the kinds of things you get in national competitions like Math Counts and AMC, or our regional competitions like Math is Cool, Knights of Pi, or the Washington State Math Championships held up in Blaine. These are problems that usually are taking a few of those topics from the bottom level of our pyramid, and then often applying them together in a combination that requires expertise in both in order to be able to solve them. And so these are much more applicable to the kind of problems that you face in the real world when it comes to planning your finances, or working with engineering tasks or other math tasks. Now, at the top level, we get into the advanced and abstract problems. And these are often things that don't necessarily have an exact solution. These are the kind of things that come up in math Olympiads, or they come up in the higher level competitions like AMC 10 or the national math counts. These are problems that usually don't have existing samples that are broadly available. Whereas the concepts in lower level math counts competitions show up over and over again, and the nature of questions they'll repeat themselves with different numbers. But the most advanced competitions tend to have problems that are rarely seen, or tend to work with applying techniques and laws of math that haven't really been overdone at lower level competitions. And so the reason we build this pyramid is to explain how our sessions approach developing students, because we're trying to provide a single math club that has channels that will appeal to, let's say, sixth graders who are completely new to math competitions and new to most math beyond what they learn in elementary school, all the way up through our most advanced eighth graders who are already, 2 years into high school math and are competing at the top level competitions around the state and country. So at the bottom level, we provide what we call our homework session. And every week, the Math Club has a homework assignment, which is a past Math Counts handbook stretch. And the Math Counts handbook is a handbook that's published by the company that runs Math Counts every year. And they include in them these things called stretches, which are 10 problem sets that focus on a very specific domain. The example here talks about right triangles, and it starts off by just explaining or having a few questions around the Pythagorean theorem, and then it gets a little harder, talking about applying the Pythagorean theorem for other shapes and other geometry. And then at the bottom, the hardest problems in this particular set have to do with using right triangles within the context of similar geometry. So being able to take similar triangles and similar right triangles to infer values for other parts of the geometry in those diagrams. So every week we have a different topic that we take, and it's assigned on our website. And the students go in, they work on these things, and then when they come to the homework session, the coaches will go over each question every week. And in the case of the homework sessions, we don't ask for specific needs. We cover all the questions, because a lot of the students haven't had familiarity with these topics, and they might not feel comfortable raising their hand. But in these sessions, it turns out that most of the kids can't solve all these problems, which is very understandable for the grade level. So the coaches go through in great detail, because they understand that they're helping these students to build these fundamental skills so that they can be prepared to go on to the next level of competition questions. Now, the next level of competition questions we cover in what we call our club session. So for students who've mastered those homework topics, the club session is really the ideal place for them to be, because they're able to go in and tackle these problems from Math is Cool or Math Counts, and be able to take on things that are harder than they've probably seen from those stretches. And so in the club room, we cover past competitions. Every week we'll generally take one past competition, like, hey, here's the state competition from the 2018 Math Counts, and we'll go through and maybe do the sprint round, or maybe just do the target round those days. And those will be a specific set of problems from the competition, and the coaches will generally select questions from them that are more difficult. So the more challenging questions that often apply a combination of the homework level stretch techniques. So working with, let's say, right triangles and similar shapes as we were seeing before, or it could be expected values with ratios, or it could be tons of probability or counting related questions that involve number theory and some of the more advanced topics that come out of those homework stretches. And the focus here is on building familiarity, not with just solving those kinds of questions, but also understanding that on an AMC exam, they often ask this kind of question. And you'll see over the course of a few different exams that the same question might pop up a few times with different numbers. So the more prepared you are to tackle those questions, the better prepared you'll be for the next AMC exam you go take. And so this is all about building familiarity with the competitions and the techniques for solving those problems. Now, we do have some students who are among the top in the state and even compete at a national level. And that's what we focus our varsity session on. And this is for our most advanced students, and we go after the most challenging problems and topics. Out of the gate, just to say, most of the students in Math Club are usually not prepared for this from day one. But the goal that we have is to build people up through our pyramid so that by the time they get to 8th grade or maybe even earlier, they're prepared to go into that varsity room and tackle problems that are really competitive even at a high school, or even sometimes, touching on applications of different middle school concepts that would even be challenging to college students. And so what we want to do is we want to give a channel to help those students develop their advanced skills. And this is really driven by our coaches. So we're really fortunate to have some great coaches who are high school students who compete at the highest levels in high school. And so they're bringing down the concepts that they wish, that they think would be really useful at that middle school level for the top students to be ready to compete at the highest levels. And so they'll be preparing questions each week or selecting them from past exams to really build on that. So the idea is we want to move students up from homework through club all the way to varsity the best we can. Now, talking a bit about competitions, we do compete in national and regional competitions, and these will vary from year to year, but we have a schedule later on in this video that talks about what we usually expect to compete in, although the parent night will clarify that, and of course we always have to adapt as the year goes on. But all the competitions will have individual components, meaning that a person, an individual student will take their own individual exam and possibly a mental math or something else. And so it's really important to prepare for that stuff. And that's primarily what we focus on in the Math Club, is helping the individual be ready for the individual stuff. However, a lot of competitions also have team components, and this is really cool because this gives the opportunity for these students to form teams, which is always parent driven, and those teams go in, usually in a group of 4, and they get to practice things like working together to solve a set of 10 questions, which involves their delegation between each other, the coordination of their answers, the appropriate application of effort across the problems to try to optimize for the most points they can get, as well as some of just basic coordination for things like the relay test, where 4 people will line up and the first person answers a question, hands their answer to the next person who needs that answer as an input to their question all the way down the line. Another example is College Bowl, which is a team-style Jeopardy, where you've got 2 or more teams facing off against each other, where they get to buzz in and answer questions read off by a competition proctor. So there's a lot of cool stuff that gets involved there. And the ideal way to prepare for these things are the past exams that all the competition sites make available. And so we strongly recommend that. And our RMS math site, the public site, has links to all that stuff. And we'll have a link to that later on in this video. We do encourage all members to participate in all competitions. We provide on our internal share, there will be a spreadsheet with all the students listed, and you can just go in as a parent and you get to say which competitions you want your student to participate in, and you say, if, for example, if they're competing and they're only going to do the individual stuff, you just say individual. If they're not competing, you can just say no. And if they have a team, like if you've worked with some other parents, because parents coordinate the teams for most of our competitions, where you work out with some other parents, usually try to be in the same grade level, and you'll pick a team of 4 and you'll take a color like red. And so for your grade, all the colors need to be unique. So the parents for the 4 people on your team would say, like, put red in the column for their student for that competition. And then that helps us understand what teams are coordinated and if there's individuals looking for teams. And also, if you're an individual and you're looking for a team, just write yes, because that means you're competing in the competition, but you don't have a team yet. And this way, that helps other parents find each other so that students can get teams together. And then we also strongly encourage you to practice for team competitions. Usually the way this will work is one of the parents will step up as a team coach. They'll identify a couple tests from the public websites of the competitions coming up. They'll download the tests, print out a few copies, get the students together in a room, and then just give them time to run through the competitions together, so that they understand how they will work together when the time comes. We've got some great tips on our public website about how to coach a team, as well as tips for the team members on the ways they can optimize their scores. Finally, there are some invitational competitions we're a part of. For example, in math counts, we always have a school round to determine the top 10 or 15, depending on the year, that will be advancing to represent our school at the chapter level. Whenever we have an invitational, we always decide it as objectively as possible. There's no panel that just picks and chooses kids or whatever based on past performances. So even if there's a student who has never participated in anything, they come in, they take the exam like everyone else that we have, which would be proctored at a school. They would take it for the school level thing, and if they come in the top 10, then they're invited to be part of our 10 team that goes off to math counts. And math counts is usually the only competition where that's relevant, but sometimes we have math is cool. So math is cool is limited to 32 official participants per grade per school. So if we have more than 32 students signed up, we will just have a school level math is cool exam, and then the top 32 students will be put into teams of 4, driven by parents, and then the other ones can still compete. The students below that 32 person cut, they can compete, but they're just unofficial. They still get to go to the competition, see their friends, get to do the math rounds, especially the team stuff, which is always fun. But again, the point to make here is that it is as objective as we can possibly make it. And we'll always have details that come up on our website and as needed, and you can ping the Math Club chair for more details. This is our generic competition schedule. So we do focus on the AMC 8 and 10, which are held in November and February usually. We also are involved in math counts at the school, chapter, and state level, and hopefully nationals. For that, usually December, January, March are about the time frame. Sometimes chapters in February. Math is cool. We support the regionals and usually the masters. We often qualify. We work really hard for that. And so when we qualify, we always send students. And then some of the local ones like Knights of Pi, the Blaine competition, and the Lake Washington Olympiad, those are usually held in spring, March to Mayish. And again, this is just a generic layout. Just to give you some context, our website will have exact dates as they become available. So just make sure you check the website for the Math Club. And of course, we also have the competition sign up will be kept up to date. So you check the spreadsheet on our internal share and you'll be able to see all the details. Now, volunteers are really important. We can't run the PTSA programs without volunteers. And so the Math Club will always have at least one chair who's responsible for just coordinating everything, lining up coaches, lining up people to run volunteer programs, participation in competitions, making sure the competitions get paid for, all that kind of stuff. In addition to that, every year we need 3 room leads. And what this means is that a room lead is someone who steps up for the year and says, okay, I will be responsible for making sure that we have an approved volunteer to proctor every homework session. And so if you happen to be available and you can be at that, whether it's in the room for the team session or if it happens to be in the virtual room for a Microsoft Teams session or at the school in the physical classroom, we just need to make sure, because it's required, that we always have a Lake Washington approved volunteer to be present. If we don't have that volunteer present, we have to cancel the meetings. So in the past, we've had a bunch of last-minute juggling and a bunch of challenges, and we've learned that by having a room lead, it makes things so smooth, and there's no volatility for the kids, and it's just stress off everybody. So if you can be if you can be at a meeting every week, which would be after school on the same day for a given room, that's perfect. I mean, that's the ideal thing. But otherwise, you just need to go out and reach out to volunteers and make sure we have a set of people available. And again, we need one of those for each room because those rooms are often held when we do the in-school sessions. They are held at the same time. They are simultaneous. The other thing we need is we need a competition registration lead. And this is a pretty straightforward job. You're really just responsible for maintaining the competition spreadsheet. That's going to be it's the Excel sheet that's hosted on our internal share. It has a list of all the students, and all the columns are the competitions and the dates. And then we just make sure that, like, when people are, as we're approaching competitions, that people are aware they need to uh, update their status, so that the students who don't have a status, like, usually the parents will be good about that, and we will consider anyone who hasn't put any status in as not going to the competition. But we will need somebody that just kind of coordinates that to make sure that, like, if we have a bunch of students who want to go and are looking for a team but don't have a team together, you get to encourage ping the parents, and they'll often join that team together, or we can manually fit those groups as we see fit. The other thing is we need someone, this person would also be responsible for registering the individuals and teams for the competitions. So that's really just on the site, copying and pasting the names into the form and submitting it. And then if any changes happen, sometimes people have to back out because of conflicts or other things that tend to arise. You just update that based on those things that come in. So having that lead really takes a load off all the focus that the rest of us do on the coaching sessions. Now, for next steps, the first thing is attend the parent night. So depending on the year, we'll always have an in-person parent night if possible. Otherwise, we'll hold it through a Microsoft Teams. And in addition, from on certain years, we'll actually have a video posted ahead of time on YouTube for a given year that talks about kind of like the specific details for a year. So, for example, if we start the year remote and we expect to have the math club be remote, then we will talk about how exactly we're going to structure that, the days, and so forth. So check out the YouTube channel for that, and then attend the parent night in person if possible. That's a good way to get all the details and any of your questions answered. After that, or instead of that even, join the PTSA so that you can join the math club. So you can sign up at rmsptsa.org. You join the PTSA, that enables you to get into the math club, and then once you enter the math club, you're able to get into the sessions and our internal share and all the other stuff that's associated, as well as the competitions that we support. We also have a public site available. This is a site that has a bunch of information, like the schedule for our homework. That's going to be available out there so students know what the topic is for the week, and ideally go out there and download the homework packet. We provide the homework in a single PDF packet, so you can download that homework file once, and it has all the stretches in it, and then you just check to see which specific stretch is due that week. And so you go through, get those problems done, and then either attend the session or attend one of the other coaching sessions over the course of the week. The public site also has a competition schedule for what competitions we're going to be involved in and what the dates are, as well as a link to the site so you can get past exams. And we also have up there a couple articles on tips and tricks for individual performance, team performance, and how to coach a team, like how to get started, how to plan practices, and so forth. And again, we really hope that you sign up for competitions and volunteer, which we'll make available on our internal share. We'll have the Excel sheets there. We'll generally keep two sheets. One will be for a team competition sign up that we'll have a volunteer maintain to make sure that we get everyone involved that we can get involved in competitions. And then on the volunteering side, we'll have a spreadsheet up there for making sure we have a schedule of volunteers for our in-room sessions or our online sessions. Either way, coaching sessions require that approved volunteer proctor, and if we don't have somebody scheduled the day before the session, we will have to cancel it. And then finally, if you have any questions or feedback, reach out to the Math Club Chair at rmsptsa.org, and they will work through getting whatever questions you have resolved. Thanks for tuning in, and really excited about the upcoming math year.